And we're back in the car on a hopefully happy hump day, like we never left. Welcome to the Confessions of a Not So Dangerous Mind podcast. I'd like to thank you all for spending some of this happy hump day here with me in New York. Once again, we're going to skip past all that promotional jazz and get right to the guts of the episode. Well, in the immortal words of Al Pacino, I have seen, finally, one battle after another. Now, I'm the kind of guy, I subscribe to HBO Max, I get Peacock, I get all these channels, but I just don't watch that many movies because I got other stuff going on. I've been pretty busy, you know? I don't have unlimited amounts of time in the way of my younger self who could just sit around doing nothing, watching movies and complaining about a lack of a social life. What a concept, huh? But I have seen one battle after another, and I got a lot of thoughts about it, to be honest with you. I don't want to say that I had a similar reaction to my somewhat infamous reaction to the movie Sinners, a film that I can appreciate and I think is in its way brilliant, but a movie that I just didn't like. And as much as I recommend it and I gave it a 9 out of 10, I hate that movie. Hate the movie Sinners. It made me uncomfortable. Oh, it was supposed to. It made me uncomfortable, not in the way that it was supposed to, and I was angry for most of the 2 hours. The film just pissed me off, but at the same time, I could not deny the strength of the performances, the costume design, the way they set the time period, and the really superlative work from Michael B. Jordan and the rest of the powerhouse cast. Just tremendous. Ryan Coogler, great direction. It's a movie that I give a 9 out of 10 to while saying, I fucking hate it. What do you want me to tell you? So, one battle after another, I don't think actually is as good of a movie if we're just looking at craftsmanship, technical specs, and a story that actually stays on message, even though Sinners seems to move all over the place. It doesn't move as far as it may otherwise seem. Again, it's a matter, are we talking narratively or are we talking conceptually? But one battle after another I enjoyed. I liked the movie, and I would give it at least an 8 out of 10 if we're using the kind of newer metric. Back in the day, I did the old Siskel and Ebert, well, thumbs up and thumbs down, but a 4-star rating system. But we'll do a 10-star rating system, and I see One Battle After Another as a successful film. Was it worthy of all the praise and people yelling about it, best picture, best actor for Leo, all that stuff? I don't know. I did have some problems with the film. We can get to that. But I consider myself a fan. And unlike Sinners, a movie, again, I appreciate the artistry. It is a great film, but I will never watch it again. And people who tell me that they've seen it multiple times, I'm kind of wondering about them, because once was more than enough. You know, I'm all set here. No, thank you. One battle after another, though, I could see myself revisiting because of the somewhat fractured way the story unfolds. And you kind of feel like Paul Thomas Anderson could have done a Kill Bill here. I feel like he could have made a 4-hour movie, and it probably would have worked. I don't know that it would have been just as good, but he had so much story. And this is what happens when you even loosely adapt a book. And the book in question is a novel I'm completely unfamiliar with called Vineland by Thomas Pynchon. I'm supposed to be up on him. I'm a Gen Xer, right? This book, I would have been in high school when this book came out, but I know the name. I never read anything of his, and I for sure have never heard of this book, Vineland, it's a loose adaptation, because Vineland, it's about a 60s radical, like the timing is completely different. But when you have a sprawling, epic story, you can have a narrative where there just seems to be too many different moving parts, and you don't need all of them to make this film. So the basic story, and I get to do it again, and I love this, is it's about a band of revolutionaries. I guess the story proper starts, it's supposed to be 15 to 20 years ago. The French 75, I think they're called. And they're revolutionaries, and they have, in the immortal words of the character in Network, played by the Peter Finch character, they're mad as hell. They've been mad as hell. They're not going to take it anymore. They are tired of the government fucking with people, owning everything, telling people what to do and what they can't do, and we're going to give the double middle finger salute and we're going to fuck shit up. That's the process. Now, if you want to get cute, because I saw people, and you probably have seen people online, and I love the guy Jason Pargin. He's a successful author who makes reels, most of which I agree with. He's a riot. The guy is really funny. His reels pop up all over my feed, whether I'm on Instagram or Facebook. But he saw One Battle After Another, and he said, this is basically a comedy. I don't agree with that. And this is basically Terminator 2, and I don't agree with that either. Now, I'm the guy, I went to film school to do this. This is what I did for 3 years at New York University. I'm seeing stuff that's not there. I'm an elitist 21, 22-year-old, an insufferable guy that I was. But that's what I did. And so when somebody tells me, here's what the movie is about, and I'm looking at him and I'm like, I don't know what the fuck you're saying. That's bullshit. That's not this movie. I will give you a movie, though, that this does remind me of. Point Break. The character that Leo plays, the character that Tiana Taylor plays. They're radicals, they're revolutionaries. And one thing that I didn't get about Point Break, all the way back in the summer of 1991, speaking of Terminator 2, when T2 was ruling the box office, Point Break was tearing it up too, just not at the same level as T2. But Point Break is about a man named Bodie and a gang of surfers who are actually bank robbers, but they're not robbing the banks of money for their own gain. They're doing it to upset the apple cart, to fuck with the government. And they're wearing masks of ex-presidents because, as they put it, they've been fucking you over for decades. It's time to get a little bit of payback. So here, the Bodie character would kind of be a combination of Tiana Taylor as Perfect of Beverly Hills and Leo as, I guess, his last name is Calhoun, right? But he goes by Bob Ferguson for the bulk of the film. And they're in love. They have a child, played very well, although we don't see her, spoiler alert, for quite some way into the movie. An actress I was not familiar with named Chase Infinity. And they are revolutionaries. They are dedicated to their cause. The film is realistic in the sense that if you engage in terrorist activities in the United States, you're going to get caught. You're getting caught regardless of if the people chasing you are good guy government people or bad guys, or in the immortal words of Tom Cruise, good guys, bad guys, worse guys. This movie straddles the line between people connected. Are they good guys? Are they bad guys? Are they worse guys? And one of the ironies of the movie is that the Sean Penn character of Captain Lockjaw, what a great name. That's a great name. I wish that I had a name as cool as Stephen Lockjaw, and that's fucking awesome. But we think that he's a worse guy, but he's actually not as bad as a lot of other people in the story, and if you want to take some humor from that, you're more than welcome. So the movie is set in 2 time periods, and Leo's character of Bob Ferguson, as I said, and it's funny, I remember his name being Calhoun, but I don't remember, it's not Gus, I don't remember what his name is, his actual real name, but he goes by Bob Ferguson. He assumes the name of Bob Ferguson when shit goes wrong in the, the kind of prologue. Because this movie has a very long prologue, and another movie that has nothing to do with this, which also had an exceedingly long prologue where it felt like 15% of the movie, is Get Shorty from 1995, where so much shit happens, and then they roll the opening credits. Really great stuff. But Bob Ferguson believes in the cause. He is not full of shit. And this film has been called an action comedy. It's been called a satirical thriller. I mean, there are some elements, I guess you could say, are satire, but this strikes me, this film played more as having black comedy elements than a pure satire. And I feel like a lot of people almost had the wrong take on this. And that has nothing to do with what I believe are, strengths and weaknesses of the film. I don't know what the hell Sean Penn is doing, by the way, in this role. I don't know how much leeway did Paul Thomas Anderson just tell him, do whatever the fuck you want, you're one of the greatest living actors, which he for sure is. You just do how you want to do with this character, and I'm going to stay the hell out of your way. That is how a lot of filmmakers, all kinds of great filmmakers, will do it when they have a live wire like Sean Penn. But Penn makes some acting choices in this movie. I don't know what he's doing. I don't understand what he's doing. Having said that, it's a very entertaining performance by Penn. And I took Leo's character seriously. He takes himself seriously. I took him seriously. The previews for this film almost made him seem like he was a clown. And the character is not a clown. He is very committed to this cause. It's not for laughs for him any more than it is for Tiana Taylor's character of Perfidy Beverly Hills. Another great name. So Tiana Taylor was deservedly nominated for Best Supporting Actress, but the movie, I feel like, doesn't play fair with her, and maybe there was a lot of footage of her shot in her kind of new life without spoiling it, but I don't know. The character didn't have enough, there just wasn't enough there, and she almost kind of exits the story when she's becoming more interesting, is how I would describe it. So my biggest issue with the movie, well, I had a number of issues of varying degrees of what's going on here. I don't think that the Sean Penn character is consistent. And this is where you get, I really have a problem with the Terminator 2 comparison, because I can give this to you. Basically, Leo's character is like the Sarah Connor of this film, right? And I guess Sean Penn's character is supposed to be the T-1000, and how Leo will move heaven and earth, and he is more than willing to give up his life to protect the future, in this case, his daughter. That's terrific, fine. But Sean Penn's character has certain things, he has certain predilections, if you want to use that word, that he's not any kind of a T-1000. This is not that character. This is not a guy who won't move off his spot. We see him move off his spot repeatedly in this film. I didn't buy whatever was going on with him and Tiana Taylor's character. I called bullshit immediately. This character does not do that. It would be like, a little bit of a spoiler, if the T-1000 takes time out from the chase and trying to kill Sarah Connor, let's do a little George Clooney and Jennifer Lopez. Let's just stop what we're doing and have some sex. Let's have a little S&M. Let's handcuff each other and have sex. No, thank you. That's a crock of shit. That angle did not work for me. And I didn't buy that this character, who seemed so single-minded in other areas, would become obsessed with the idea of joining this absurd club, which is basically a neo-Nazi cabal called the Christmas Adventurers Club. I mean, that's another great name. I got to give Paul Thomas Anderson credit. All the names, the things that he calls, just fucking awesome. So that whole angle is more than a little absurd. I didn't really buy that either. I think it's supposed to be somewhat humorous, but I can't find those guys funny. They're not funny. All right, and I'll tell you what is funny is, speaking of Patrick Swayze in the movie Ghost, which I didn't mention, I Point Break with Patrick Swayze, but his buddy Carl from Ghost, played by Tony Goldwyn, who looked like he may have had a little bit of a leading man kind of a career, and then he ended up just playing villains. The guy that he plays, he's kind of the head of this KKK cabal. I think that it's a character of Carl from Ghost, and he's been brought back to life somehow. I think it's supposed to be him. I'm assuming that it's that guy. Or as Patrick Swayze says, oh, Carl, can't you do something other than this, buddy? Can't you do something else? You know, you murdered Patrick in Ghost, you tried to steal his girlfriend going on wife in Demi, and now you gotta have this fucking cabal screw off. That's how I took that character. Now, his performance is great. His line readings are perfect. And the character is a little bit similar to the one he plays in a Schwarzenegger film, The Sixth Day. Not that great. But Tony Goldwyn just has that patrician look. He looks like a guy who thinks he's better than everyone else. Great job by him. But I don't accept that Sean Penn's character would have been obsessed with this in the way that he was obsessed with fucking around the Tiana Taylor character and figuring out what was going on with Leo and the daughter. That angle didn't work for me. I feel like if they didn't even include that, if there was no Christmas Adventurers Club, I think the movie would maybe feel a little closer to Terminator 2. But another thing the film does very well, I could say, you don't know who's going to live or die, because this is not playing by any genre rules. It's just not. And there were characters who didn't make it that I thought were going to, and vice versa. So give the movie credit. It takes us by surprise repeatedly, and I do appreciate the attempt to do something different. This feels like it has a Kill Bill kind of structure, and there are Tarantino elements. That the fact that you can go from a lighthearted moment to brutal graphic violence, not even a drop of a hat, the snap of a finger. Really, really good. And for a movie that's long, I guess it's about 2 hours and 40 minutes. It doesn't drag, it doesn't lag. And, it's easy to make jokes with DiCaprio, with his dating life, and, Chase Infinity, who plays his daughter. She's 26 now. In real life, if they ever go out, the Logan's Run angle, it's fine. He is a great actor. He's a great actor, and he is fully committed in this performance. And even if they don't use that much age makeup, he doesn't really look that much different, but he looks more weathered. He's able to, his facial expressions are different as his character has been kind of beaten up and down by life. And he's great the whole way through. He really is. It's difficult. How do you say who gives a better performance? Michael B. Jordan in 2 roles in Sinners, or Leo in just 1 role, but over 2 time periods in this film. And Benicio del Toro as the sensei, who's got his own kind of Underground Railroad thing going on, and that doesn't become, that's not apparent immediately, but he's fantastic. He's an actor. There have been a lot of roles that people went nuts for. I don't think he's that good. I don't like his performance in The Usual Suspects. I don't understand a word he's saying in that movie. I don't know what the fuck he's saying. Sorry. That's a film that I think is... I've talked about it. Very, very overhyped. Not a bad movie, but not as good as so many fellow Gen Xers would even now, I think, have it in their top 10. Whatever. It's okay. I feel like it doesn't stick the landing. But Paul Thomas Anderson is a filmmaker who I consider myself a fan of, even though there are significant major films in his filmography I've just never seen. I never saw The Master with, Philip Seymour Hoffman. I didn't see Licorice Pizza from a couple of years ago. I actually saw what I think is his debut film, Hard 8, from, the 96, 97 range. I saw that before I saw Boogie Nights. So Boogie Nights had a theatrical run in 97. I love the movies of 97. That's the year of Titanic. There were so many great films in 96 and 97. So Hard 8 is a great movie. It's in a minor key. It's kind of a low-budget film with another actor he was a fucking cheat code, Philip Baker Hall, kind of the lead. The movie originally was called Sydney, and that was the title of the screenplay that Paul Thomas Anderson, when he was trying to get his career going, shopped around. And that script was so strong, he was going to make it in Hollywood even if he didn't get to direct Hard 8, because there's a version of The Matrix in which a writer as talented as Paul Thomas Anderson would have simply sold the script and not gotten to direct it. You could say the same with Tarantino with Reservoir Dogs. There's a version of The Matrix where he simply sells it, and Oliver Stone, who did Natural Born Killers, or a Tony Scott, who did True Romance, those are both Tarantino scripts, it would have played out that way. But Paul Thomas Anderson was going to make it. And Hard 8, he was able to get a really good cast for not that much money with Samuel Jackson, Gwyneth Paltrow, John C. Reilly. Just a marvelous film. And then Boogie Nights, it's one of the best films of 1997. Now, I will say, I like the Titanic won Best Picture. I'm a big James Cameron guy, or at least I was until he started making all these Avatar movies. Bro, what are you doing? What are you doing? I wish that he had never made any Avatar movies, as much as I liked the first one. But if Titanic was not going to win Best Picture, my choice was not Boogie Nights that year. It was LA Confidential. I think the 90s, and I've mentioned this, but for those new to the channel, I believe that the 90s are the best decade that Hollywood ever had. Better than the 70s, better than the 2010s. The 90s, Hollywood did it better. They made better trailers. They made better event movies. Everything was heightened. Everything, in my opinion, the best movies of the 90s are the best movies and what represent the best of cinema and the best of Hollywood. You had so many great filmmakers working at the top of their game. But to me, if Titanic wasn't winning Best Picture films released in 97, I wanted it to be LA Confidential. Boogie Nights is really good, but I don't have a problem with Titanic having won that Best Picture. But yeah, LA Confidential is an all-timer. Like, it's one of the great movies of that decade. I have it in the top 10 for whatever that's worth. But Paul Thomas Anderson has that. There's an edginess to his work. And another thing that I almost forgot to mention that I loved about this movie is how his use of music, the way that he deployed certain musical cues, and I don't know who did the music, I don't remember seeing in the credits, but the way that he kind of combined traditional soundtrack stuff with musical cues that were very specific. And in this way, the movie reminded me of a film from a couple of years ago, which was very polarizing, Leave the World Behind, which I've also mentioned on the channel, a kind of apocalyptic film. We're not even sure if it's an apocalyptic film the whole way through. I'm still not sure if it's an maybe it is, I don't know. But that movie used music in a very unconventional way, in my opinion. As One Battle After Another, there are certain scenes where there's dead silence and other scenes where there's just very subtle music, and then other times where the film is using music in a way that is trying to evoke a mood in us, the audience. Everything is really, really well done. And, as I say, it's on HBO Max. If you have it, I would give this film like an 8 or an 8.5 out of 10. I haven't seen, a number of the other big films from 2025. Again, I don't see movies as often as I used to. I used to go to the movies once or twice a week back in the 90s. I had a lot more time. Unfortunately, you become an adult and you don't have as much time for frivolity, as they say. But I highly recommend One Battle After Another. I have no problem with, the acclaim that it received, all of the acclaim that the individual performers in this movie, got. And the action sequences are staged very well. Paul Thomas Anderson is not known as somebody who necessarily is an action director, but the way he stages the scenes with the cars, I'm not a big car chase guy. I've seen too many car chases, but they work in this film. I bought it, and normally I'd be like, oh God, car chases, but there was a different energy with how Paul Thomas Anderson staged it. And the stakes were higher than, in my opinion, the typical car chases in movies. So the action felt very real. When characters were in physical pain, I felt it. And that is something that doesn't always happen. And it's a tribute to Paul Thomas Anderson. I forgot to mention, the movie Magnolia, it's okay. I don't love it. I love Tom Cruise's performance. And again, John C. Reilly, Philip Baker Hall, a lot of great performances up and down the line. But the movie's okay. I'll give it a 3-star out of 4, maybe 7.5 out of 10. The thing at the end where the frogs fell out of the sky, I'm sorry, I don't know what was going on there. And, I kind of mentally checked out on that. But this is a film that should be seen. There is a lot of anti-government stuff because the principal characters are revolutionaries. But this is not an anti-government film. This is an anti-scumbags who might work for the government film. And again, there are good guys, bad guys, and worse guys. And it's fun to, when you think about this movie, who's who. And that's really all I had to say about One Battle After Another. I apologize if I was a little bit rambling in this episode, but it is a film that you're going to want to talk about with friends, with family. If you see it, if they see it, there is so much, to kind of chew on. Whether or not you see it as it's a Terminator 2 film, or in my case, I like the parallel to Point Break better. And the character of Bodhi. But that's something that as a younger person, I saw Bodhi just as a pure villain. I didn't see him as an anti-hero. I didn't see this as a guy who had a point. You don't have any fucking point when you're robbing banks and you're threatening to kill people, bro. But you know what? I've gotten a little bit older, and I kind of get it. And I did not immediately turn against the character of Perfidy Beverly Hills or the character of Bob Ferguson. I didn't automatically say, oh, they're evil. No, they're not evil. I don't say they might do evil things, but I don't see them as anywhere near of the kind of banal, bland, white bread evil of the Christmas Adventurers Club. And I don't know the name of all the other actors, but man, they were good as Tony Goldwyn's kind of fellow cabal members. So, yeah, that's really all I have to say. I could talk about this movie for another hour, but I've been at it 25 minutes. I don't want to put you to sleep here. You know what I mean? But I'll spare you the exaggerated wrap-up. I hope you've enjoyed my discussion of One Battle After Another, a very, very strong film. And as I say, a movie that I wouldn't give as high a rating as Sinners, but I can easily revisit this for the skill of the performances, the construction, and the fact that I really didn't have any idea what was going to happen next. And I think that that's going to play well on repeat viewings. So on this hopefully happy hump day, here's to a great rest of your Wednesday, June 10th, 2026. Peace.